So let's do the get methods for the event, and let's start with the get event. And what I just noticed is that we are trying to get a single event, and we have the optional include gigs parameter, but what I forgot is the event ID. Of course, we need to pass the event ID for the event that we actually want to return from this method. So let's go to our iEvent repository interface, and in the get event, I'm also going to include an integer of event ID. And then back in our event repository, I will pass it here into the method as well. Alright, so let's code it now. And first, I'm going to get this logger information from the method above and paste it right here. And what we are doing is getting an event for an event ID. And now let's create a query. And again, I'm going to create iQueryable. So I'm going to use iQueryable for the event. And I'll call it query as always. And we'll go to event context. And we'll go to events dataset. Now, of course, we could just return a single event here for the event ID, but it would make sense to also include the venue where the event is going to be. So I'm going to come down here and also do dot include, and since we are including venue, I'm going to do v goes into v dot venue. So this will return the event itself as well as the venue for it. If we go to event class, you can see that we have the property venue there as well. And now we have to check if the user wants to also return the gigs. So if the include gigs equals true, then we of course include the gigs as well to our query. So we will do query equals, and we will do another include. So it's gonna be query.include, and this time we are including gigs. So g goes into g.gigs. And since we are returning at this point the event, the venue, and the gigs for the venue, we can also include the comedians as well. So after we include the gigs, I'm going to also do dot and then include, and we will include the comedians with it. So we'll go to c.comedian. So with this, the query will return everything for the event, the venue, the gigs, and the comedian as well. But at this point, it's still all the events. We did not specify the event ID yet. So after we verify that the user wanted to include gigs, whether it's true or not, we only want the specific one event. So here, we'll do another query and go to query dot and filter it down with a where clause where the event matches the event ID. So e dot event ID matches the event ID parameter from the argument. Alright, so our query now has a specific event with all the venue, the gigs, and the comedian, and we can return it. So we'll do return await and return the query dot, and just like before, when we are returning a single entity, we'll use the first or default async. And of course, let's not forget to make the task async as well. Alright, so let's move on to the get events. And here we of course want to return all the events and possibly the gigs that come with it. So I'm going to actually copy everything here from our get event and then just modify it because it's going to be fairly similar. Alright, so in our get events, the logger simply can say that we are getting events, and that's it, nothing else. And then we create iQueryable for the event, and we go to our events dataset, and once again we can include the venue for each of the events. Then we check if we want the gigs as well, And if we do, then we return the gigs, and we also include the comedians with all the gigs. So all this stays the same. And at the end, we want to return the query itself, and we can return it ordered by, let's say, the date. So we will return query dot order by, and all these events will be ordered by date. So E goes into E dot event date. And at the end, we will return the query, not first or default, because this is a collection. So instead, it's going to be turned into an array. So we will do toArray async. And of course, we need to make the task async as well. So that was a simple modification, and now our method for all events is ready. And finally, we have the get events by date. And that is gonna be actually fairly similar as well. It's still going to return a collection of events. So I'll copy this from the get events and paste it right here. And here we can simply say that we're getting all events for date and specify the date. And just like before, we have iQueryable, where we get all the events and include the venues. Then we have the if statement for the gigs, and if the gigs are included, then we will also include the comedians for each of the gigs. But this, of course, returns all the events ordered by date, but we only want to return events that match the date that the user wants. So we'll do a where clause and filter the events by the date. So we'll go to E, goes into, and check only the events where the event date matches the date that the user wants. And at the end, we will return the query and change it to an array async, and of course we'll make the task async as well. Alright, so that's the events, and last we will do the gigs methods.